Host.
This meeting is being recorded.
As soon as possible.
Cool. Got it. Cool.
Good to see you.
Yes. And now I'm going to let anybody join who wants to join right now. I think I am. Security. Turn off the waiting room.
If everybody would take a seat, I know there's still people in line, but we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 11:45. Could somebody please close those back doors? Bill? I just have to speak with my voice because I don't have a loud voice. Somebody closing the back doors, please. Thanks. So I'm calling this meeting to order. And first we're going to have our chalice lighting, and then we'll show you an agenda soon.
We light our chalice today in gratitude for all the generations that have come before us, who remind us that this work is not something we do alone, but by building, layer by layer, on all that has come before. We light our chalice today as a reminder of the love that lives here, in this church and in this community of people committed to a common purpose.
Rusty, is there a quorum? Okay. Our first order of business is to vote on the May 2022 annual meeting minutes, but I need a motion to approve those. That's George. Who's second? Ann. Is there any discussion about those minutes? All in favor? All opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. So, let me see what we've got up here. Ann Pettit. So I've got a short introduction, which is what I prefer to do just to get everybody into the mood. This is our mid-year congregational meeting. We'll be having another one in May, which is going to be even a more important meeting, so everybody make plans, put it on your calendar. And I know we're all busy, so we want to provide you with some updated information today, but we're going to keep it concise. In preparing for today, I was reading my intro from our May 2022 meeting, which was the first in-person meeting we had in more than 2 years. And after reading that, I really am amazed at what we've done in the last 8 months. We had activities and services throughout the fall, including a Halloween trunk or treat, a successful chili cook-off and auction, a Christmas Eve service, and a number of potlucks. Apparently we love potlucks. Of course, we still have our amazing staff, volunteers and members doing their thing. Some of those staff, volunteers, and members are new to our church, and we're thrilled to have you. We also now have a church-wide covenant, a diverse group of new members, many of those families with children, a flourishing RE program, a permanent choir, and numerous small groups, including a New Horizon Pagans group. Our social justice group continues to speak out and participate in the issues. We also have a pretty constant stream of visitors to our Sunday services, a new music director and an office administrator, and any number of committees and task forces working to keep this church active and healthy. Just to note, a list of these will be on a bulletin board soon, so take a look and feel free to sign up. And while there's a lot of energy and things happening, we also still have some challenges. Those include, but are not limited to, volunteers. A number of those volunteers I mentioned before are the same ones volunteering all the time. Those folks need help, even if you can just pitch in for an hour here or there. Help with the potluck, watch the kids, plant a flower, weed the garden, etc. And we need help with some bigger things like planning stewardship events this spring, or chairing the membership committee or social justice group. Look to see where you can help and just volunteer, or say yes if someone asks you to help. Number 2, we have building repairs that need to be done. We're lucky that we have no mortgage, but we do have a building that's over 30 years old. And like the rest of us, It's not getting any younger. We just replaced an HVAC system, and the other two systems are probably not far behind. Thankfully, we do have a formal Building and Grounds Committee now, and they're busy prioritizing the list of repairs. But to make those repairs, we'll be relying on some limited funds. Childcare is number 3. With all the families joining us, we're very aware of the need for more childcare, and we're working on it. Unfortunately, we're having the same issues as everyone else in finding reliable, competent people to fill vacant positions. A new task force is being formed to work on remedying the situation, and we're still looking to hire people. Number 4, economy and finances. Nationally, the economy is not great. It's affecting individual finances as well as our endowment fund and our revenue stream. We're doing better against the budget on revenue and expenses so far, but it's still a deficit budget. So we'll continue to have our challenges as any organization does, but our rebuilding effort is generating positive vibes around here, and I think it's pretty exciting. We're not going back to whatever normal was. So let's work together to redefine and rebuild Horizon's new normal. Thanks so much for being here today in person or on Zoom. A few notes to those of you on Zoom. You'll be able to see the slides and hear the presentations, but you won't see the presenters. Rusty will be monitoring the chat, so please ask questions or comment there. And as usual, please stay muted. I think that's it, so we'll go on with our meeting. Beth.
I think we can go one more. And, yeah. Good point. All right. My name is Beth Barger, and I'm the chair of the Leadership Development and Nominating Committee. And the rest of our gang is here today too: Allison Ching, Peggy Leopold, Sandy Steele, and Holly Stout. And we do have an email address if you'd like to get a hold of us. Just a reminder that the long name that we have is actually a pretty recent addition. Horizon has always had a nominating committee ever since the church was formed, but as of May of 2021, we added a leadership development component to the nominating committee. So for instance, the LDNC and especially Sandy Steele helped facilitate the board retreat that was held this last fall, that several leaders of the church attended. So that's just one example of the kind of thing that we're up to. But our main effort this spring will be naming candidates for the elections that will be held at the annual Congregational meeting in May. The positions that will be coming up for election on the Board of Trustees include the president, the treasurer, and one trustee at large, 2 positions on the LDNC, and 1 on the Endowment Committee. So as Carolyn wisely said, just say yes if you are approached. And it seems like we're getting feedback. Do you hear that? I don't know if something's on. Okay. And as somebody who was formerly on the board and is now on the LDNC, I've never tried the endowment committee yet, but it's like being on a small ministry or in a small ministry. It's just been some of the most meaningful interactions and service that I've had as a member. So I just encourage you to jump in. And then lastly, back to our leadership development component, we have an upcoming discussion opportunity that we're going to be hosting at 2 adult RE classes, one at the end of March and one at the end of April. And it's kind of a continuation of what the Ministerial Search Committee brought to us in the fall, which was a Beyond Categorical Thinking workshop, where we had the chance to talk about case studies that involved potential ministerial candidates and new ministers. And so we'll take on a few more case studies and get the chance in an open, covenantal way to discuss some of the considerations that might come up. So again, we'll advertise that a little closer to the time, but that'll be at the end of March and the end of April. And that's what I have.
Are y'all awake out there? Okay, just want to make sure. Don't want to put anybody to sleep. Hi, I'm Floyd McLaughlin. I'm chair of the Endowment Committee. Other members include Ed Keller and Cindy Treese. For those of you that have been around a while, you know about the Endowment Committee, but for those of you that are newer, the purpose of the endowment is to further programs, ideas, and the objectives and principles of Horizon. And we do that through earnings that are generated from the endowment fund, not from the capital, but from the earnings. And in good years, we have earnings and we distribute them back to the board. We work with the board to determine where those earnings are spent. It goes to things that are not part of the normal budget. And the endowment committee members are elected by you guys. And what we do is look at the investments and make sure that we're managing them as outlined in the bylaws. And the bylaws require that our investments, try it again. There we go. That our investments are put into equity funds or socially responsible investments. Plus, we did a small loan to, still didn't forward. Maybe I'm not doing the right button. Which one? This one? Center Strand. You mean? Okay, finally got it advanced there. And we did this small loan to People Fund, and they invest in community development throughout Texas, serving minority businesses mostly. Try it one more time, see if we get it. There we go. Since May, we have not received any new donations to the endowment fund, so I would encourage any of you that can and will to make some donations, help grow the endowment. We did make a disbursement of $10,000 to the board, and they decided that the best use for that would be to help fund the work of the Ministerial Search Committee, and that was based on the earnings that we accomplished in 2021. And the endowment fund is run on a yearly basis as opposed to the budget cycle of the church, just because the financial reporting is geared to yearly. 2022 has not been a good year for the endowment fund, and probably most of y'all can personally relate to that in your investments. Our balance has actually decreased by about $70,000 in this past year. There we go. The S&P performed at a loss of a little over 19%. Our funds performed at about 22.6% negative. Those funds are split between 3 investments other than the $10,000 loan to People Fund. We've got 35% in a socially responsible fund. It had a negative 26.8% growth. We've got about half of it in a Schwab S&P 500 index fund that performed at about a negative 18%. And then we've got an extended market fund with Vanguard that had a negative 26.47. So it was a bad year for investments just in general. But keep in mind that we're in this for the long haul, that there are years we're going to exceed the S&P, there are years we're going to hit right on the S&P, and there are years we're going to be a little worse. So what does this mean to you? Well, it'll mean, number one, there probably won't be any endowment funds distributed to the board next year, so keep those contributions coming in for the running of the church. What can you do to help us grow the endowment? Well, number one, you can make a donation at any time. So I'm encouraging people to do that. You can also put the Horizon Endowment Fund in your will or trust so that when you get ready to leave this world and do whatever happens after that, you can continue to help Horizon with its mission. If you have any questions about how to do any of these things, you can go onto the website or you can talk to any of the 3 members at any time. So thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Saj Survey, a member of the Ministerial Search Committee, or MSC, and the rest of our members are up there for you to see. And so as we search for our next settled minister, you can see on the bulletin board, it's a sort of 7-phase process. We are currently in phase 5 out of 7, which is discernment. Well, let's see. And so discernment time is kind of a quiet time, outwardly facing, but fast and furious on the internal side for the MSC. This time is where we are receiving applications from prospective ministers and interviewing them and making decisions about that. The process is very prescriptive by the UUA, down to the hour in some cases. So, we are following the processes as laid out by the UUA. And so there's not much I can really say regarding our applicants other than that we have them, which is good. And so we can't discuss applicants with anybody, and there's really good reasons for this. Many of the ministers who are entering into search have day jobs with congregations right now, and they may not have informed those congregations that they have entered into search, right? And so we don't want their congregants to find out that they're entering into search because of some chance conversation that they had with somebody at Horizon. That would be very bad on us in terms, and would reflect poorly on our congregation. So as I know you're very excited, you're very curious, but just please try to refrain from pressing us for information, because number one, we're not going to give it. And number two, just don't be that person, all right? So understand, trust the process. We are following the process as prescribed by the UUA, and all will be well. So there you go. Yes. Yes.
I know that some congregations are more popular than others from the eyes of the applicants.
Okay.
I was wondering if you know where we rank.
Hard to say at this point. Hard to say at this point. I'll leave it at that. Okay. So because we don't have much to talk about in terms of this, we did want to share something with you, and this is an important one to share. So If you haven't seen this yet, the Pulse of Horizon, the QR code is there. You can scan that with your phone and pull it up if you like. Or this was released in the newsletter that went out, that goes out every week. In the MSC box, there's a little link to this document. This is the executive summary from all that work that we did in the fall. We had those focus groups, and you did that all-church survey, and we listened to you, and based off of that, we created this consensus document talking about our congregation, talking about Horizon. There was a lot of data and quotes, and many of you in this room are going to be represented in that document through the quotes that you shared, things that you had said during the focus groups or on your survey in your feedback. And so, this is a really interesting document, and I really encourage all of you to read it. It's organized around statements, 7 statements that sort of summarize who we are as Horizon at this point. And so these are the summary statements, and so I just wanted to share those with you. These are kind of the top line conclusions that we were able to make from the feedback that we were given. And so the first is that Horizon is diverse in thought and theology, though not necessarily ethnically diverse. We say that Horizon membership skews older and has more education and affluence than the surrounding community. There are 2, this one was an interesting point. There are 2 large contingents of attendees at Horizon, longtime members of 20 plus years and newer members of less than 6 years. So we have kind of a bivariate hump there, and if you're for the stats folks in the room, in terms of the distribution of our congregation, which is an interesting point. And this was resounded very clear through all of the feedback that we received, that Sunday in-person worship is the beating heart of this church in terms of utilization, in terms of what we feel is the central to our message. Everything comes back to that Sunday service. That being said, we are a programmatic church. We have plenty of things that we offer, and the members that take in part of those draw really deep meaning from the various programs that we offer as a congregation. The Horizon congregation is seeking a thought-provoking minister who can help us build a beloved community. So this is talking to what you were telling us in terms of what you're seeking out in terms of our next settled minister. And the last one was that Horizon is fully invested in the idea of shared ministry and the idea that it's not the minister's job to come in here and save our souls and save the church. That's all of our jobs, right? So we work together to achieve our mission and vision here at Horizon. So if you have any questions about the MSC, and we will answer it to the best of our capacity and ability, you can ask those of me or any other member of the church at any time. Thank you.
So the next group of folks are our upcoming church programs and activities, and Lauren will start us off with that.
Are we advancing our own slides? Okay. I'm Lauren Daniel, the Director of Lifespan Religious Education here, and also the Growth and Learning Circle Coordinator. And so I'm going to let you know what's been going on. So I just wanted to go over some things in the fall. It's been a great fall. The reason I say that is, to begin with, is that our children and teens all started back in person all together for the first time since the building closed in 2020. And it was just a really joyful time. Also, we've been offering lots of OWL this year, Our Whole Lives Comprehensive Sexuality Education. In the fall, we had grades 5 and 6 OWL. Right now, 7th and 8th grade OWL is going on, and I'm very happy to, I'm gonna kind of give a little preview. High school OWL started today, so it's very exciting. Also, we had just had lots of celebrations, like we had our back to school splash with this gigantic slide. We had our trunk or treat, the tree trimming party, and then of course, in conjunction with the worship circle, all ages Thanksgiving and winter solstice services, which were just wonderful. And then there's a lot of other things that went on too. So this year we have more women's journey groups than ever before. So we have 3 sections of women's journey group. There's a small group called A Year to Live, which concluded in September. And then there's an ongoing Perspectives on Aging small group going on, which will conclude in March. And then also, Reverend Meredith offered Your Spiritual Autobiography. Madeira McKee offered a whole semester of The Artist's Way. And then Sarah Burrell Harrop and I combined to offer an online parent small group called Parents as Caregivers as Sexuality Educators. And of course, we have a new group called the Horizon Pagans, and you'll hear more about them later. So yeah, it's very exciting. So what is coming up? Well, there's a lot coming up. First of all, I wanted to, there's lots of groups in growth and learning, and I can't talk about them all, but I just wanted to remind you all that Buddhist Sangha is going to start meeting after the service. They'll gather at 11:45 and then have their session at 12, and everyone is invited. You don't have to be part of the group. You can drop in and see if you like it. Also, the Horizon Pagans are going to be offering many, many rituals throughout the year. The next ones are coming up on Saturday, February 4th, and then again after service on Sunday, February 5th, and I believe it's Imbolc that we will be celebrating. Also, there's lots of classes going on. Like I said, High School OWL started today, and it continues through the 16th of April. I want to take a little bit of time to talk about offerings for our adults. So there's going to be a workshop that's going to be held at different times called Building a Living Tradition for the 21st Century. We may not know this, but Article 2 of the UUA bylaws are being redone. And those are the ones that have to do with the principles and the sources. And so beyond the 8th principle, there are proposed changes coming to the principles and sources. And so we really encourage you to come find out what those are. And Reverend Meredith will be preaching on it. I feel like I'm stealing Meredith's presentation, but repetition is good. There's another thing coming up for parents or people who are interested, caregivers, where there's a series of workshops called Real Talk, Supporting Your Children, in their healthy sexuality. What it'll be standalone workshops that, once again, Sarah Burrell Harrop and I are anchoring, although we hope to have guest speakers on a variety of topics that parents can drop in on or just choose the ones that they want to attend. I'm really looking forward to that. And last of all, there is a class coming up called Exploring Theology Together, and MC Metter and I are anchoring that class. And being a non-creedal faith, how do you know what to believe? Well, MC and I will guide you, but there's another question we're going to ask you. What is our part in the beloved community, and how do I contribute to the beloved community? So it's going to go from the me to the we. And so if you are looking for something very deeply spiritual, I really invite you to take this class, because so many of us, we wonder, it's like, what do I believe and why do I believe it? Well, this is your chance to figure that out. Let's see, do I have more things coming up? Oh, yes, okay. We're gonna have a small Valentine's celebration on February 12th. It's just a drop-in. We're gonna be writing some notes to people that pastoral care feels like needs a little extra TLC this February. There's gonna be the Spring Fling, which is our Easter spring celebration on the 9th. And then we'll look forward to bridging for our 18-year-olds or high school seniors. So, and I'm sure there's much, much more, but that's all I'm gonna say. And of course, I just have to thank everybody. There's so many people to thank. I mean, I had to shrink the font because I kept adding people, and I realized I forgot to put the tech helpers on this, because we have a cadre of people who are wonderful, who run the tech beyond what's happening in worship. And anyway, I could just go on and on about all these folks. So if you have a question about programming for children or teens or adults or anything like that, please come see me. You saw my email address up there on the screen at the beginning. So thank you so much. Please keep supporting our children and youth. Please keep participating in classes. And if you have ideas for adult programming, please come on up and let me know. So thank you so much.
See if you hit the forward and Okay, good, great. Well, if I have trouble with this, we'll go from there. Okay. Hi, I'm Sandy Steele, and I'm the acting coordinator of these activities. They really run themselves, so I just host the monthly Spirit of Justice meeting to help us all keep connected. I just want to frame this update briefly. This work really helps us live our mission, which we promote often, we talk about in the service, as well as our vision, which is we envision a beloved community filled with compassion, helping all to thrive in a just world. Just please keep this in mind as we go through this quick review and think where you might fit in to that. Next. Yes, okay. First, I want to talk about our Faith in Texas program. It's been active for a number of years, and while the relationships have changed, the program is as strong as ever. The team has been involved in demonstrations this past year and bailouts at the Dallas County jails, where a significant percentage of the incarcerated stay in jail just because they can't afford to bond out. The bailout this past Wednesday released 20 people. And Horizon was recognized by the Faith in Texas leader for our participation and support. They called us out, so it was really nice. You'll hear more about this work next Sunday during the service, so don't miss it. The second area I want to talk about is the community garden. They have donated 300 pounds of fresh food to MetroCrest this past summer and fall. Woohoo! All this in spite of record heat, irrigation issues, and fewer volunteers. They really could use some more gardeners, or just people who are willing to volunteer once a month. Keep that in mind. They also ask you to keep the compost and brown leaves coming, no twigs or any of those weird things. The third thing, that the Green Sanctuary has had a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and they've now submitted their application to become certified. This congregation, I hope, will soon become a Green Sanctuary, which is awesome. Our monthly Share the Plate initiative has been taken up by Minica, who has collaborated with the largest justice team and put together a thoughtful list of recipients. The big news is that this last 6 months, this congregation has given away more than $10,000 to 6 lucky recipients. Please continue to give generously. Last but definitely not least, we continue to support MetroCrest services through our garden, through our Sunday service, and we also volunteer one Saturday a month. I've heard that they could use a few more volunteers, and parents, keep in mind, it's a great way for your teens to get their service hours. And while some jobs require some strength or stamina, there are easier tasks that don't require lifting for seniors like me, to be honest. So that's a great place to do a once a month service project. Okay, next slide. I just want to talk about a couple of the events we've had this past year, just because we're on this roll. We had a great Carrollton Pride event here last June with great community and Horizon volunteer participation. It was awesome. We demonstrated our support and willingness to focus on the LGBTQ community and welcomed them with open arms. And we are working on a deeper relationship with the Carrollton Pride team. In one last addition, this has just started, we're going to be offering a transgender inclusion workshop sometime this spring using videos and curriculum from the Transforming Hearts Collective. So I know Minica and I have committed to doing that. We haven't set the dates yet. So I've seen the first video. It's awesome. Okay, the MLK Day Parade was just recently completed last weekend. We are one of the longest standing community participants and now a valued sponsor of this annual local parade. With about 15 participants last week, we helped to demonstrate our open welcome to all and people of color. So it was a great community message. Last but definitely not least was Horizon Get Out the Vote. This really wasn't just an event, it was more of a movement during the midterm election cycle. It was a great effort, and it really supported our desire to promote a beloved community in a very difficult Texas environment. While we didn't qualify for a good trouble congregation, the effort was still outstanding. And you can see some of the accomplishments we made up there. I really want to give a special thanks out to Dave Troiano. And I also want to call out Deb Freeman, because she kind of led the parade and the Carrollton Pride events. So thanks to them. One last note, VDR training is going on this last week. It's ongoing. It's a great opportunity to get it now because it will carry us into the presidential election cycle. Okay, let's go. So yesterday, I attended the Legislative Action Day. I did it virtually because I couldn't go down there. It was at the Austin UU Church. There were 4 of us that went. Calling out Joel, MC, myself, and Dave Troiano. It was a great event, great speakers, and it really gave us an overview of the issues we're going to focus on in the upcoming Texas legislative session. These will include reproductive rights, today's sermon, LGBTQ rights, which are very close. It's all about body autonomy, and mass incarceration. Maternal health is part of that, reproductive rights. Anyway, and racial justice is all wrapped into this because they're all connected. There will be multiple lobby days starting there's a couple in mid-February, but mostly in March. And we're going to share more with you in the coming weeks. Joel and the team will get together and let you know. And Sarah, if she's here, she helped with the Zoom, and I give her, she was great. It made it possible for 4 of us to attend. So Joel went down there, and the other 3, we were all virtual. Anyway, thank you very much. It was a great event. Y'all wait to hear more from us in the future. A couple quick mentions. The Southwest UU Women's Conference is in Dallas, so there are a number of our members plan to attend. It should be great. And keep in mind, UU General Assembly is coming in June in Pittsburgh. And just a quick note, it's on the slide. Lauren talked about the Article 2 classes that they're going to be having. That's also kind of all tied into our social justice work. Okay, lastly, I want to thank all the leaders and the volunteers, especially these leaders. We can't do it without them. We can't do it without you. Whether you donate food, time, or money, you are helping us live our mission. If you're interested or want more information about any of these opportunities, please take a picture of this slide. Or you can reach out to our email address. You can check the bulletin board, and we'll be glad to connect you to the right people. And don't forget to join the Horizon Vision and Values Facebook group. It's not up there, but that's another way to stay in touch with what we're doing. Anyway, thank you for having a great 6 months. I'm looking forward to the next 6 months. We should keep it up. Thanks.
Oh, I'm short. There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to represent stewardship this afternoon. And I know stewardship isn't nearly as exciting as all these groups that you've just heard from, but without stewardship, a lot of this wouldn't be possible. Most of this wouldn't be possible that you've just heard about. So, yes, that's right. I have to do this. Okay, let me see. Okay, stewardship maintains and improves Horizon's fiscal resources, which come primarily from pledge revenue and other fundraising activities. And our physical resources, our building and grounds. And while I'm on Building and Grounds, we would like to thank Tina Strobel for agreeing to chair the Building and Grounds Committee. Is she here? Tina? Where is she? Tina, stand up. Stand up, Tina. We are very grateful for Tina because she said yes when she was asked. Pledges. Pledges are dear to my heart. I'm a pledge captain. And your continued support is more important than ever during this time of transition. And your pledges and gifts have made a real difference. We are cautiously optimistic going into 2023. You may have noticed that we've had many visitors this fall, and since October, we've had 7 new members. Pledging is an expectation of membership. We understand that not everyone can pledge. However, a contribution of record will keep your membership active and will allow you to vote at the annual meeting. Please consider raising your pledge if you are able. We always ask, and it usually works if people are able. The fall fundraisers raised about $10,000. The online auction had items for sale and have been providing opportunities to socialize. The chili cook-off was a new fundraiser this year, and there was a great turnout, and people reported having lots of fun. The building repairs. I know Carolyn spoke to that. Our building is at that age where things are breaking down and needing repairs, and the one HVAC system has been replaced. But we also have other repairs that are on the to-do list. The fire suppression system has leaks, as well as the roof, and the sprinkler system needs repairs, and there's also other repairs needed in the sanctuary. And last, but certainly not least, I call it the elephant outside, is the Wayside Pulpit. First, I'd like to recognize the committee that's worked very hard on this ongoing project. Karen Collins-Nobles, Floyd McLaughlin, Pam Schuman, and Beth Barger. And I also want to recognize Peter Hendy, who was chair of the building committee and worked on this project before he and Lynn moved away. The electronic part of the sign is completed, woohoo! And the masonry frame that you see out there has been delayed by a lot of different things, by weather, by holiday shutdowns, and by worker COVID outbreaks. All things that, couldn't be controlled, certainly by us, and a lot of it couldn't be controlled by the people that are working on it. But the project is moving forward. And we don't have a target date yet on when it will be complete, but it is moving forward. And I know that there's a lot of people that have questions, and so if anyone has any questions on it, Karen is here and has all the detailed questions. So if anybody wants to ask any questions about it, feel free right now that's the last that I have to say. So if anybody has any specific questions about it, you can ask. But if not, that's super duper. So, yes. I will turn it over to Karen. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
We have display set up in September in the lobby to show people what the sign was going to look like. And I know you all can't see it from here, but we'll work on getting an electronic version out. This is going to be the electronic part of the sign. It's 5'5" tall, by 10. And this the actual construction is 9 feet high and 30 feet long. And this part is metal, aluminum painted. And we're working with Castile Signs, and we're going to Pam and Floyd and Beth and I are actually finalizing the color for the background. This flame here will be translucent, so there's going to be a light in it.
really cool. We're really excited about this. So, and I'll be available after the meeting to show you any more details on this. Thank you.
So I want to begin by saying that when I first came to Horizon and found myself leading the worship circle, it seemed like a lot of our volunteer support and structures had kind of died during the pandemic. And so, not to say that people haven't helped, they absolutely have, but the structures for doing so had kind of gone away. So one of my goals was to really get this support functioning again as we return to in-person worship. And I feel like we have really done that. So I'm grateful for all the folks who have joined the Worship Arts Committee, become worship associates helping in the Sunday service, become ushers and greeters. I'm extremely thankful that we've hired Josiah. I'm grateful for Steve, Daniel, and Rusty, who have done a lot to make slides each week. And my point in saying this is that it takes a village. Every time more hands touch something, it becomes more beautiful. As you've also noticed, we have hired a new music director, Kel, and we're incredibly grateful to have him. The choir sounds amazing. And I would encourage folks to try singing in the choir. I would also like to extend gratitude to Saj, Deb, Carolyn, Carmen, all who worked to make choir happen before we had a music director. Your efforts have made a huge difference. And when we talk about shared ministry, this is what it can look like. I'd also say that we've tried to do new things in worship this year, more all ages worship services, a solstice pageant, Thanksgiving worship, an earlier Christmas Eve service. And I've also tried to include more rituals for grief, for letting go, for bringing something into this space. And I, in collaboration with other folks involved in worship, will try to do more of that as my time draws to a close. I've also worked hard, in my estimation, to say what is true and needs to be said, to challenge us, to speak to the current moment, and to open this congregation to listening and taking seriously the words of a new voice in a new style, so that you may once again be open to whoever will come after me. In the coming months in worship, we'll focus on expectations, on celebrating the return of spring and giving gratitude to our earth. We'll also focus on boundaries and the ending of my relationship to this congregation as its minister. We'll also focus, as folks have talked about, on Article 2 and understanding what that means for our principles. I'd also invite you, if you feel called, to speak to me about joining the Worship Arts Committee, becoming a worship associate, or to attend a choir rehearsal. If you're interested in providing a time for all ages in the worship service, please be in touch with Lauren and myself. I welcome participation on many levels, and we all have a role to play in helping one another to create a sacred space here. So I'd like to, with that, go into my minister's report. So I'd like to say that in regards to our circle system, our stewardship coordinator is going to be moving back in order to focus on self-care, and we love and support her. And folks on the board, as well as myself, may be asking folks to try to step into specific tasks related to stewardship instead of taking on the entire circle as a whole. So please try to say yes when possible. Of course, while other circles have remained unfilled to some degree, stewardship is so critical to this congregation right now that that is not an option. And as far as the circle system, I think one thing that we can see is that it is not working in the same way that it did before. When I came here, I feel that our leaders were very tired and have been working hard for a long time, and we need new leaders now. So this doesn't mean that you have to say, yes, I will absolutely become a circle coordinator, but I think it's time to think together creatively about how work in each of the circles might be able to be divided into smaller chunks that more people could take on. So if there's something you love at Horizon, my message to you would be to wonder about how you can be a part of making that thing happen, even if it's just in a small way. I'd also like to talk a little bit about Breeze and QuickBooks, and I'll start by saying when I arrived at Horizon, another thing that I noticed right away was that the database, ACS, didn't seem to be serving this congregation well. And after some research, I recommended that we switch to Breeze, which we have done. So if you haven't familiarized yourself with Breeze, I recommend you do so. I'm super grateful to Ellen and to Gay and to all of the other folks who have worked on that. In changing our database, we have also had to change our financial system to QuickBooks, which has taken quite a bit of time and energy, specifically from Menica, to whom we are so grateful. This switch, yes. This switch has been in progress for a long time, but it is finally coming to an end. We have hired a consultant who specializes in QuickBooks to help Menica, and several folks in leadership have spent significant time going over our financials to ensure they are correct and accurate, which is really the closest we might be able to get to undergoing an audit, which needed to be done anyway. Though it has been labor intensive, this means that our administrative systems are in a really good place for a new minister to begin at Horizon and for new leaders to come on board. One thing that has been behind the scenes throughout my ministry here is a significant amount of administrative work, which many folks who only see me on Sundays may not be aware of. Finally, as minister, I would like to share my gratitude with all of you for your continued support of Horizon with your time, talent, and treasure. Thank you so much to those who responded with generosity to the holiday ask for our operating budget. We have faced a tough year as a congregation, and your support is sustaining us. Again, I would ask all of us gathered to think about your personal situation. If you value this church, if you come most Sundays, if you've gotten life-giving education for your child here, if you feel this church changed your life, please consider raising your pledge if you are able, because your support is what keeps us going. Finally, as I've said before, some of the struggles facing Horizon, like drawing from the same pool of leaders, budget struggles, difficulty hiring for things like childcare staff, these are not Horizon problems. I just want to make that clear. I know that because I hear the exact same thing from my colleagues on a daily basis, that they are struggling with these things too. But I really want to make sure that you know that too, because that means that we're not alone. This is not an us problem. This is a societal problem. So in short, thank you. Thank you to all of you for this past 6 months, and thank you for all of the things that we will continue to do.
bear with us, we don't have too much more. This board report, and then we have the financials. So, as you probably know, I'd like, if the board members, would you please stand up? We've got Greg Gent is our treasurer, Amy Porter, Kat is our vice president, Karen Buszczak, Michael McKee, and Rusty Nadel is our secretary. This is a great group of people to work with, and I'm grateful to all of them. So, in case you are bored or want to read something different, the bylaws and policies of this church are on our website at that link. If you're curious, go ahead. We also have our meetings are monthly on the third Monday at 7 o'clock in the library. You're always welcome to attend. So we don't work in like a little vacuum actually, but sometimes maybe you think we do, but we're back behind the scenes. So I'm going to go over some of this real quick so you know we really are working. So far this year, some of our accomplishments, we did work with the LDNC to conduct and participate in our planning session for this fiscal year. There were more than 20 Horizon leaders there, and it was a day-long session, and it was very beneficial. So it was a good thing. We have defined our board goals and covenant. The board determines its goals each year in conjunction with the church goals to direct our work. We also write a board covenant each year to help us as we conduct the church's business. We hosted a programming volunteer fair in September that was well attended. A lot of people signed up. Thank you. Keep doing that. Of course, we monitor the status of Horizon's fiscal health. This is one of the board's main jobs. Greg and I met with our budget advisory committee, and I'd like to thank MC Metter, Cindy Treese, and Sandy Steele for participating on that committee this year, and with Reverend Meredith on several occasions to discuss financials and the budget. We recently established a restricted fund for building repairs. It's called the Building Reserve Fund Accrual. There's now going to be a line item each year on the budget so that funds will be added to this account annually to help us fund repairs. Of course, we participated in a board MSC focus group and accomplished our specified tasks related to the search. During a ministerial search, the board is involved only at certain times as defined by the UUA or requested by the MSC. Okay. Yep. What? Oh yeah, I'm still good. Okay. So this is what we are working on and will continue working on. We're reviewing and updating our board policies. Horizon is a policy governance church with policies that are set by the board. We're updating a number of these policies so that they accurately reflect and support the way the church and board actually conduct business. As we work through the policies, we're also examining how the board and the minister or the chief of staff can balance the work or share the ministry more effectively than is currently happening. We will continue to monitor Horizon's fiscal health. This also means working with Minica, our patient accounting clerk, to finalize the accounting system conversion from ACS to QuickBooks. During Greg's presentation, he'll show you our current income statement, but he will not be showing the balance sheet at this time. QuickBooks is still not playing nicely with that one. So we'll keep working on it and have it done within the next month. We can update you at that time if you're interested. We will be working on the fiscal year 23-24 budget with the Budget Advisory Committee, circle coordinators, and the staff. So the budget cycle for the next fiscal year has already begun. Woo. We're also going to be establishing a finance committee. We're planning to create a new finance committee rather than a budget advisory committee as a permanent committee to assist with financial planning, the budget process, etc. If you're asked to participate on this committee, please, again, consider saying yes. If you have a background in finance, if you're just interested, speak up. It's going to be an important one for ensuring our financial health moving forward. Some of you knew that Peter Hindy was our go-to person for that, and since he's not here anymore, we're going to create something else. So that's our upcoming. Here's some other upcoming activities. So we really are busy. We're going to help and continue help supporting and integrating our church covenant into church life more thoroughly. It's a new thing. We need to get used to it and start using it where necessary. We'll support the Building and Grounds Committee and Reverend Meredith regarding repair priorities. We'll work with the congregation and staff to determine a solution for childcare staffing. We'll continue to support the MSC when needed and stay out of their hair. And of course, we'll help Horizon prepare for a new settled minister. So that's just some of what we've been doing and what will keep us busy for the next 5 months. And of course, I showed this last time, I'm showing it again. We're healthy and we're moving forward. It couldn't have happened without a participatory congregation. And there's a special thanks to all the volunteers and staff. And we want more of that, so join us. So now, Greg is going to give us the lowdown on the financials.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Gent, and I have the privilege of serving as your treasurer. So to quote Monty Python, no one ever expects the Spanish Inquisition. Well, no one ever expects a pandemic, its economic impact, an interim ministry, and all the work that goes with that all at once. It has created an opportunity for a lot of work for our congregation. And today, I'll be talking about a lot of the very successful work that has been done and is worth celebrating. And we'll talk about a clear-eyed understanding of the work that remains for us to handle. So when I last spoke to you, it was in May. We presented financials through the end of April. And at that time, currently we're running a $7,000 surplus, but anticipated that we would end up at year end, at the end of June, with around a $12,000 deficit. In reality, where that really ended up is that the real year-end deficit was only $5,000. Now, that budget year was a budgeted deficit of $44,000, and we only ended up with a $5,000 deficit. It's an incredible amount of work done on the administrative side, volunteers, leadership, congregation. And I'd like to highlight that a tremendous amount of that was from temporary expense reductions. So a reprieve, not a permanent trend, right? And it resulted in a healthy amount of funds for us to start the fiscal year we are now in. So here's our current fiscal year to date, which is through the end of December. So let's talk about the work successfully done this year. Let's start by noticing the better worse column. If it was worse for the line, it's in red. If it's better, it's in green. It's all green. We've done better in every category. If we just go to the bottom line, that green total is we are beating budget so far by $43,000 for this fiscal year in the first 6 months. Of that, if we continue on the bottom line to the left of the 43,000, our year-to-date budgeted deficit was $29,000. We actually have a surplus of $14,000. This is not what we would have anticipated, and this is an incredible success for us so far this year. One item I want to note about that, if you compare it to the full year budgeted deficit is $68,000, which means in rough numbers, we had anticipated around $30,000 deficit to happen in the first 6 months and another roughly $40,000 to happen in the second 6 months. If we dive down into some individual lines, you'll see that pledges have beat budget by around 8,000 by a little. Our other income has beat budget by a little, by 4,000. Our personnel expenses, we beat budget by $19,000. That's a significant amount, not something we anticipate repeating. And other expenses, we beat budget by 12,000. So you can see that most of the beating budget is on the expense side, not the income side. And we've beaten budget by an incredible amount. So I mean, this is worth celebrating. This is really an incredible place for us to be. So I want to make sure we all understand what these numbers mean. What work have we successfully done? So our budgeted deficit was driven by lowered income expectations, not by increased expense. And our beating the budget by 43,000 happened mostly from reducing the expenses, not from getting the revenue back up. So you can see that 12,000, or about 28% of the beating budget, was from our income being higher than expected, but 72% of it was from expenses being lower, and those were temporarily reduced expenses, not permanently reduced. So if we look ahead to what we might anticipate 6 months from now for the year end, of this 68,000 deficit, around 40 grand of it was budgeted for the remaining 6 months in front of us. And I think it's reasonable for us to assume that 40,000 deficit will happen. It's too early for us to tell how much of the higher income in half one, in the first half, is a new trend versus temporary. There's some evidence that the pledging rate is rising, and some of it looks like it was possibly one-off things. So we need time to better detect that. But I'm going to assume the second half actual expenses are going to trend much closer to budget. A lot of the reduced expenses was on the personnel side. In the sense we were fortunate, for one example, that while we were closed, our director of music took another position and relocated and resigned, saving us budget money. And now that we're back, right, and we super glad to be spending the money on a music director again, right? The expenses will rise to budget. So I'm anticipating we have a 14,000 surplus as of the end of December. Let's anticipate we might end up with as much as a 40K deficit over the next 6 months. And collectively, that would have us end around a 26,000 deficit at the end of the year. But that's compared to originally a budgeted deficit of $68,000. That is not a bad place to be, given the Spanish Inquisition that we were not expecting. So, I've largely talked about the work that we've done, and I want to make sure we're clear-eyed about the work that is in front of us, the work that remains. Our congregation continues to rebuild, both financially and programmatically. And although my report is a financial report, it's never about the numbers. It is about the mission of our church. We're not here to support the financials. The financials are here to support our collective mission. Delivering programming requires spending budgeted levels. In preparing for today's presentation, I ran across a calculation done about 5 years ago. The calculation at that time said roughly 2 to 4% of our budget is not fixed expenses. And yet in the first 6 months of our year, our expenses were below budget by 14.7%. Non-fixed expenses should only be 2 to 4%, and yet we spent 14.7 less of budget. So that's not a sustainable expense level to deliver our mission and our programming. So our first half results provided a very helpful buffer, absorbing the year end if things go on that possible trajectory I discussed. Absorbing a 26,000 year-end deficit is way easier than a 68. And I want to briefly contextualize this. Before COVID, our unrestricted funds was roughly $75,000. And the first year COVID increased our unrestricted funds. The combination of our expenses going down, the generosity of the church, and the PPP actually brought in more revenue in the beginning of COVID than we spent, kind of like a one-time lift. Last fiscal year, amazingly, we drew that down by like roughly $5,000. This year, we might draw it down by like another $26,000. If that trajectory happens, we will end this year with roughly the same amount of unrestricted funds in the bank than right before COVID. This is really amazing work for our snapshots to have not really changed after the Spanish Inquisition. I mean, it's just really incredible, right? But we do need to continue rebuilding. And rebuilding in this context, in the financial report, means making sure we also rebuild on the income side to support the programming of this church. And the income side is an important part of the rebuilding. And Horizon historically is generous and continues to be with time, talent, and treasure. And it's not just giving to the church, but it's giving to the church's mission. And it's all interrelated. When you give your time and your talent, you're potentially reducing the expense needs of the church, and you're potentially helping the church deliver its mission without having to spend money. So I thank you on behalf of all of us. Thank all of you for your contribution of time, talent, and treasure towards towards accomplishing, delivering the mission of this church. Thank you for your time.
So you made it. We're at the end. Mhm. So we had a town hall, a good one last week, and there were some questions and comments, and we talked. So I'll open it for questions briefly, because we've got the whole board here and other folks. So are there any questions? Steve?
Will the creation of that new finance committee require a congregational vote, or is it something that should be just handled by the board?
The board will handle it. It'll be an ad hoc, but it will be, working for the board. Anita?
Green sanctuary related question. Can you stand up, please? I think it'll help people hear you. This is a green sanctuary related question. And it's more of a hope. When we consider roof repairs, the roof has to be redone. Can we check on solar shingles, not solar panels, solar shingles?
We will refer that to the Building and Grounds Committee, because we have a whole list of things, and I hear what you're saying, but and of course we would take that into consideration, but then we have lots of stuff to deal with. Is there someone?
For anyone who is interested in helping, how can we get involved with helping the task force that's going to be working for childcare employees and volunteers?
We've just started this. There are a couple of people who have volunteered on this, and I don't want to name their names right this minute. They'll be getting in touch with folks, and I don't want to take this wind out of their sails. They'll be putting the program together and how to contact other folks, and it is moving forward rather than stop still. So
Just looking for if there were going to be regular meetings that people could attend.
it's up to the task force. So anybody else? Okay. Oh, One more, Karen? Mhm. Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Phone doesn't work.
Yeah, I heard you. I didn't know that was a problem, but
Yeah, I don't think that we're having specific issues with our phones. We did make a switch to Zoom phones last year, but I would say that because especially our new administrator, Audrey, she works specific days part-time, the best way to get in touch with her is to email. I would say for all staff, it's much easier to get in touch with folks via email. Yeah. I don't, from what I know, and I would say that maybe we can discuss this outside of this meeting, we don't often get a lot of calls from the public. We do get a lot of emails. Yeah, so thank you. It's office@horizonuu.org. It's also always, all of our contact information for all of our staff is always on the back of our orders of service. It's also on our website. So if you ever want to get in touch with us, please check that out. Thank you so much.
okay. Meredith, you need to stand back up. Is there another?
Really quick question.
Yes, sorry.
Office, not administrator? To reach.
I think it's administrator at Horizon UU.
Yeah, we have multiple, but like I said, it's office@horizonuu.org. There may also be an admin that forwards to that. Please check our website. Please check the back of your order of service. If you're in need or confused, you can talk to me.
We're going to extinguish the chalice.
Okay.
Maybe I missed it, but I don't see office.
Well, we'll get. with
It's
you.
there, Anita. We can discuss it. Okay. Okay, so I'd like to extinguish our chalice. So let's take a breath and pause. Okay. We give thanks today for the faithful work that we gathered here to do as a congregation, for the compassionate and careful listening that we've done to each other, and for all of the service that everyone has given to Horizon. Go in peace.
Thank you all for attending. The meeting's adjourned.